The world of Crimson Desert features a medieval time period where swords, horses, and bows rule everything. Or so you think when you first load up the game. But there is one man in Pywel who has shattered that truth entirely. He has made the world of swords and bows a thing of the past, and a driving force for what's to come in Pywel's future. But just exactly who is this man? How has his influence affected Pywel? Where did he come from, and what are his true motivations? These are the questions we ask as we dive into Marni, the genius inventor that has changed Pywel forever. This one man has had more influence over the world of Crimson Desert than even Caliburn himself. And yet, somehow, he's one of the most mysterious characters in the game. And he doesn't just exist in Crimson Desert. In fact, his existence may connect to something far larger than most players realize. To understand who Marni really is, we have to go to where his story is written most clearly across the land itself. Our story today starts in the far east of Pywel, in Delesyia, where a massive flying fortress hangs overhead. Not a castle built on a mountain, not a natural wonder, but a weapon of war that is suspended in the sky like nothing we have ever seen before. This isn't some ancient relic left behind by a forgotten civilization. It's connected directly to the same man whose machines have transformed this entire nation. A man named Marni. And while we won't understand the true purpose of this fortress until much later in our investigation, it's our first major clue that Marni's ambitions extend far beyond simply creating useful machines. Whatever Marni was building in Delesyia, he wasn't thinking small. While this fortress is something worth investigating, first, we must head into Delesyia and investigate a few other things. And as you try and cross its borders, you notice something. Something that is just a hint as to who Marni is. Everywhere you look, there are mechanical bugs, attacking the residents of this nation, and the orcs are fighting back. But why are these bugs attacking the people of Delesyia? As we push on to help these orcs fight against the mechs, we run into a master craftsman that respected Marni. His name? Vagash. He makes it clear that he doesn't understand what happened and why Marni created these weapons, because he used to create things to help people, and yet, here we are with many of these machines attacking the people he used to help. Telling us that Marni was once a kind man, but something clearly changed. But did he really? And was Marni really someone that cared about the people so much? Or was he someone that was just self-serving and happened to help people on his way? All great questions, and to understand whether Marni was truly a good man, we first need to understand just how influential he was. Because Marni wasn't some inventor working alone in a workshop. His machines transformed an entire nation. And our first stop, with Vagash's guidance directing us further into Delesyia, we must head to the castle where we will find something we were not expecting. On our way to the castle, we come across a few things. First is as we push through the land of Delesyia, we notice that everywhere we go is filled with machines. Some look peaceful and looking to help the common folk, while others are clearly weapons of war attacking you on sight. And the second, much less obvious thing we see is scattered throughout. There are some memories, and that's where things become even more interesting. Because the people speaking in these memories aren't ordinary citizens impressed by a clever inventor. They're some of the most accomplished engineers and craftsmen in all of Delesyia. One telling us that not everyone agrees with Marni's vision of machines, and another telling us a little bit more about what kind of man Marni is. And the more important one of them is the memory next to Delesyia Castle. It shows us Vagash and another man named Victor Faust. And they briefly talk about the Iron Crawler, which we will get to later. Vagash telling us that he would have been riding on horseback for days if not for the Iron Crawler, and telling us that they were just waiting for Marni. Ending the memory by saying that Marni wants to show them something, and it's most likely something surprising. This memory shows us that these two figures that stand as if they have authority respect Marni, and even for them, it's likely to be a surprising invention to be shown. But just why does this matter? Why do these two men have any weight into showing us who Marni is? Well, we already know about Vagash through the storyline. He is the chief of the Ironworks Orcs, and per his own words, he has been tinkering with machines since he was 3 years old. And he was also the designer of the mech that we came to use to defend Gothrock from the machines that were attacking them. Proving that Vagash was a brilliant inventor, but yet he still knows he is likely to be surprised by Marni. But what about this other man, Faust? Well, if we look at his knowledge card, we can get a little bit more information. It tells us that he is the leader of the Dewhaven Keep, and one of the 3 great engineers that have paved the way for Delesyia, but he doesn't share the same views on machines as Marni does. While Marni wants to center everything around machines, Faust believes they should be used to assist people more as tools rather than something people rely on every day. This shows us that even though Faust doesn't share the same beliefs, he still respects Marni, showing us just how much of a genius Marni really is, that even people not in line with his thinking are showing him the respect that he has earned. And now that we know just how respected and how big the influence Marni holds over the world, we can move forward, but keep that image of Faust in your mind, because it will be key in connecting some things later on in this video. So, with that in mind, it's time to finally head on over to the castle, where we are greeted by some things that were far from expected. The machines, the architecture, the sheer scale of it all. But it's what everyone is wearing that stops you in your tracks. Every single person in this castle is wearing a helmet. And not just any helmet, it looks identical to the Visione, the very device we picked up early in the game without a second thought. And as we dig deeper, we start to realize that this invention is far bigger than any of us ever knew. But for now, after experiencing this creepy sight, we must push onward into the castle, where we are met by a Marni devotee and brought to the throne room, where we are greeted by the strangest thing in the entire game since the Abyss itself. There's a digital floating head talking to us. Not a man, but something more intangible and much more disturbing than we were expecting. It speaks to us, telling us that it's done research on us, and it knows we have the ability to enter the Abyss, telling us that it wishes to research us further, showing us just what kind of man this supposed Marni is. He's not looking at us as a person, but more so as a research subject. And this bit of knowledge will become even more important later on. But for now, after telling him to shut down the Sky Fortress, he instead sends us into the basement of this castle with seemingly no way out. But luckily, we have a tool that changes that. The Visione, showing us once again that this helmet is more than just something to read memories of the past. So we connect to the Visione data input device, where we meet the real Marni. But if this is Marni, then who was the floating head above? Why was he in control of the castle, and what is this room beneath the castle really? All questions to keep in mind, but first we must talk to the real Marni. Here he tells us that we must hurry up before he boots up his brain, and directs us to a transporter, but on our way to the transporter we can notice something. While we are connected to this memory, there is no wall here, but when we take it off, the wall appears. What exactly is the Visione and the World of Memories? While there is nothing that directly tells us within the game, it feels very much like the Visione is physically taking us into a world of this memory, where for instance that wall did not exist before, allowing us to pass right through it, and the place we are going that Marni directed us to will provide us with some evidence to back that theory. And also, if we go back to the Blood Coronation where we first met Caliburn, our theory is also supported here. When Caliburn is able to rip us out of the memory as if we were actually there, and it must take just a special kind of person to notice these interactions. Almost like it is nearly erasing our presence to the people within the memory. But it doesn't erase it completely, allowing someone with extreme observation skills to notice we are there. But how did Marni come up with this invention? How is one helmet able to do so much? If Caliburn was able to notice us before, does it have something to do with the Abyss? All great questions and definitely should be kept in the back of your mind as we continue on through the teleporter to Marni's museum, to find some more information. As the transporter spits us out right in front of the museum and we head on in, and behind a photo we find another Visione data input device. And here Marni shows up once again in another memory, where he tells us that to get to him we must first get 3 keys using the transporter in the manor. And as we search for the transporter around the manor, we notice something that solidifies our theory from before. Just a little bit more. As we travel through the manor using the Visione and the memory world, we come across a room which used to have a staircase, but it's completely broken down now. And as we connect to the memory world, all of a sudden that staircase is rebuilt. And that's where our theory starts becoming much harder to dismiss. The wall at the castle could have been written off as a strange anomaly. Caliburn noticing us could have been dismissed as a one-time event. But now we're staring at a staircase that no longer exists in the present day. The moment we connect to the Visione, it's restored, and more importantly, we're able to use it. At this point, the question isn't whether the Visione is doing something unusual. The question is just how far that power really goes. Because the more evidence we uncover, the harder it becomes to believe we're simply watching recordings of the past. But for now, we must ignore that because we need to get answers from Marni himself, which means getting these keys and finding his secret hideout. As we head through the transporter once again, we are immediately hit with more of these mechanical bugs, but that's not all that's here. There's different designs. These look closer to the machines that were helping the citizens we saw earlier, but these were clearly designed for war. And as we push a little bit further into the base, we see something that has a familiar design. A massive war machine that shoots out explosives from all sides. And if we go back just a tad, we remember that the Black Bears were using a very crude version of this to invade Calphade. Up until now, it would have been easy to think Marni's influence was limited to Delesyia. But seeing these weapons and recognizing their design from the Black Bear invasion tells us something very important. Marni's inventions aren't confined to a single nation. They're spreading across Pywel itself. But we aren't here to marvel at these weapons. We are here for one thing and one thing only. The keys to get us to our destination. So we grab one from each of 3 separate bases and head back to the transporter in the mansion once more, where a new option has appeared. Marni's secret base. Finally, we are about to get some real answers. After running all over Delesyia, fighting mechanical bugs and giant war machines, searching through memories, and making our way through cryptic manors, we finally go to meet the man himself. And what he has to tell us makes so many of these events make much more sense than they did before. But more than anything else, there was still one question that needed answering. If the man we met beneath the castle was truly Marni, then who or what was the entity controlling the fortress above? And this Marni has that answer. As we enter his secret hideout, we can find a few documents laying about, and at the center of the room looks very much like something we have seen already somewhere else, but we will get to those in just a minute. As we approach the center of the room, Marni appears behind us once more, giving us some much needed answers. Immediately telling us that he is the true Marni, and that what we met before in the castle was actually HALL, a constructed consciousness and a mirror of himself. And telling us that every alarming event across Delesyia is HALL's handiwork. And that HALL was the one to strike a deal with Caliburn, and in the process, HALL locked up Marni, took his place, and stole his flying fortress Orbion. He continues on to say that he wants us to take down HALL and that we must obtain Golden Star's power core, which is a weapon to rival Orbion itself. And just like that, one of the biggest mysteries surrounding Delesyia is finally answered. The entity controlling the fortress wasn't Marni at all. It was HALL, a constructed consciousness created in Marni's own image. Not a servant, not a machine following simple instructions, a mind designed to think the way Marni thinks. And suddenly, a lot of things are starting to make much more sense. But perhaps that answer raises an even bigger question. If HALL was created to mirror Marni's mind, then how different are they really? While HALL is the one doing these evil deeds across Pywel, it still would hold the majority of Marni's way of thinking. So maybe, just maybe, Marni isn't the good guy here at all, even though so many people in Delesyia worship him. While he doesn't seem like he's interested in doing evil, he also doesn't seem like he's against it. He just wants HALL gone so he can be free from HALL's grip. Marni, at the end of the day, created Orbion and created Golden Star. Both were just confirmed to be weapons of great power. Both of them are weapons powerful enough to shape the future of entire nations. And that's where things start becoming difficult to reconcile. Because the same man responsible for some of Delesyia's greatest advancements is also responsible for creating weapons of unimaginable power. So what exactly was Marni trying to accomplish? Was he trying to help humanity? Control it? Protect it? Or was he simply pursuing knowledge without caring where that pursuit might lead? And perhaps the best way to answer that question isn't by listening to what Marni says. It's by examining what he created. Because by this point, we've already seen his machine spread across Delesyia. We've seen his fortress hanging over the nation. We've seen the Visione blur the line between memory and reality. But those are only a fraction of Marni's creations. And the deeper we dig into Delesyia, the more we begin to understand the scale of his ambitions. But first, in this hideout of Marni's lies a few clues as to who Marni is, and some of the creations he has made. The first item is a document labeled Careful Observation of HALL, and it confirms what Marni already told us, but it also gives us a little bit more, stating that HALL made contact with the Abyss. It traced back the anomalies detected within the Abyss to find the source, and that must have been where the darkness seeped in, and it soon began acting independently. Letting its defiance grow, Marni simply wrote it off as a mere system malfunction, but he was very, very wrong. At the end of the document it states, "I find this transformation utterly fascinating, yet I cannot shake a nagging sense of unease. Despite it all, I cannot bring myself to shut it down." Just think about that for a minute. Marni knew something was wrong. He wasn't blind to what was happening. He wasn't unaware of the danger. The document makes it clear that HALL's behavior concerned him, and yet despite that concern, he couldn't bring himself to shut it down. Why? Because whatever HALL was becoming, Marni found it fascinating. The possibility of new knowledge outweighed the risks, and for the first time, we start to see what might truly drive Marni. Not power, not conquest, not even malice. Discovery, no matter where that pursuit might lead. This document reinforces exactly what we suspected before. He's not inherently evil and does not inherently want his machines to be used for nefarious means, but because he reveres the knowledge, the curiosity, and the pursuit of what comes next above all else, he is willing to overlook these horrible things done by his creations. But HALL was not his only creation. There's still so much more, including Orbion, and more importantly, the power that rivals Orbion, Golden Star. And as we look around the hideout just a little bit further, we find the Golden Star blueprint. This document states that he simply wished to test the true limits of his mind, and the legends of Erdava's dragon filled him with an unshakable drive to surpass myth itself. It then goes on to say, by fusing the dragon's heart with an artifact of the Abyss, he will create the ultimate life form. A being that transcends all known boundaries, giving us an immense amount of implications here. First is the strengthening of our theory from before, saying he simply wishes to test the limits of his mind. This further builds upon what we just talked about. The more we learn about Marni, the more a pattern begins to emerge. Every limit he encounters becomes something to overcome. Every boundary becomes something to cross. Whether that boundary is technology, consciousness, or even life itself. Second is Golden Star is modeled after the dragon found in Erdava, Black Star, and he combined it with an artifact of the Abyss, and is trying to make the ultimate life form, showing us evidence that he does not look at life the same way the rest of the world does. Golden Star also suggests that Marni's ambitions may not have stopped at machines. If he's willing to combine a dragon's heart with an Abyss artifact in pursuit of the ultimate life form, then perhaps his fascination with creation extends far beyond engineering. And that's where the picture of Marni begins to change completely. Up until now, we could have viewed him as an inventor. a genius engineer, a visionary. But inventors build machines. Marni was trying to create life. And once we start looking through the rest of Delesyia, we begin to find more and more evidence that Golden Star wasn't an isolated project. But first, we must go take down Golden Star and HALL. And the implications from what happens within these sections are so insane that when I found out about it, I was stunned at the knowledge I just gained. So after we defeat Marni's giant man-made dragon, White Crow appears before us. And she says that she will analyze Golden Star's power. This alone creates so many questions. The Abyss Guardians themselves do not know where this power came from, or how Marni was able to design it. So just where did Marni obtain its knowledge? We don't know yet, but we can draw some theories a little later on. But first, we must confront HALL in the Flying Fortress Orbion. Here he appears in the form of Marni, but quickly changes between forms, telling us he exists everywhere and can be everyone, and that we could have shared limitless knowledge and immortality if we joined him. Wait, what? Did he just say immortality? And he exists everywhere? So are we even able to really destroy HALL? While this game does not directly tell us anything about this, we will be able to use this to build upon the theories we make later on. But if HALL has knowledge of immortality, then would it be so unusual for Marni to have that knowledge as well? It's an interesting thought to say the least, but now that Orbion has been destroyed, it's time to do some investigating of some of Marni's machines across Delesyia. At this point, we have more questions than answers. Questions about the Abyss, questions about immortality, questions about knowledge that even the Guardians themselves were unable to explain. But before we dive deeper into these mysteries, there's still something else that kept bothering me: the people of Delesyia. First, before anything, I want to take a look at the knowledge card for Victor Faust. We already know who he is, but I want you to keep his image in mind. His hat, the sash across his chest, the color scheme. And now we can head up north a little bit in Delesyia to Marni's outpost. As we approach, there's a boss in the middle, and does this boss not look familiar? The hat, the sash, the color scheme. Do they not give you eerie vibes that this Machina Knight is built with the likeness of Victor Faust? And on top of that, as far as I can find, we can't actually find Victor anywhere on the world of Pywel. Only what he left behind and the one single memory with Vagash. And maybe it's nothing, maybe it's just a coincidence, but the similarities are very difficult to ignore. And as we go deeper, the coincidences keep piling up. So the next place we must go to is back to the museum, where you may have noticed a purple book. Maybe you skipped it because you couldn't figure out how to get to it, or maybe you just wanted to progress the main story, or maybe you did find it but had no idea what it meant. Regardless of what you did with it, this book leads us to a truth that at the beginning of this video you might have never believed to be real. The journal itself isn't anything special. It simply says the Eternal Corridor is a place modeled after the Abyss, where visitors come face to face with unknown terrors and wonders within. To those who would visit the Eternal Corridor, etch into your heart the key to its gates. These words seemingly don't mean a lot, but it does tell us one thing. And while it doesn't explicitly say it, we can assume this to be made by Marni himself. And reading this journal will unlock a quest line for us to go explore, taking us to the Gate of Advancement. And taking a look at the knowledge card, it states that it's a spire, and it's standing atop a peak where all neighboring nations are visible, built by Marni. It was constructed to showcase his genius to the world, and is a physical manifestation of his own confidence, and unlike the spire, he chose the name Gate, a decision that offers a glimpse into his distinctive personality. This knowledge card tells us a lot, even if it's not direct about what it says. First, it tells us that Marni is a genius and he knows it, and he wants to flaunt it to the world. And second, choosing the word gate where the rest of these towers to the Abyss are called spires, where spires are typically associated with churches and worshipping gods or ascending to a higher being. It's an interesting choice of words. Most people build spires to reach something greater than themselves. Marni built a gate, not a place of worship, not a monument to ascension, a doorway, almost as if he viewed the Abyss not as something sacred, but as somewhere he intended to travel. This also makes it sound like he is capable of creating other gates to other dimensions. But that is purely conjecture on my part, as nothing directly states that he can do this, but there is some evidence that can support this theory. And at the top of this man-made gate, there is a set of abyss islands. Everything mechanical, everything very dangerous, and at the end of it stands one thing that builds upon what we've all seen so far. It's a clockwork whitehorn. To some, this may not mean much, but if you've explored further upon the world, you would know that this beast is something that lives in Pywel already. This monster is something akin to what we would consider a yeti, a monster of myths and legends, and the people of that area sacrificed children to it as if it were a great guardian of their land. And Marni recreated this monster to stand at the end of his abyss, showing us once again that Marni is pushing the boundaries of nature and machine, and the consequences are not of concern to him. And with that, we come to the last two pieces of evidence within Crimson Desert, to tell us just who Marni is and what kind of person he is. The first one is in the epilogue of the game. It's simply one last memory, an expansion to the memory of the Visione. Remember how I told you before that the Visione was not just simply reading memories? Well, let's just watch exactly what Marni has to say about it, because these words might send a chill down your spine.
It's recorded. First, allow me to congratulate you. You've reached this memory at last. Your persistence and effort deserve applause. Now, to the heart of the matter. Do you recall what I said at the start? That the Visione meddles with the user's mind. In truth, that's no flaw. It's by design. The Visione doesn't simply record its surroundings. It reads and stores the user's emotions, and that data is delivered straight to me, its master. The subject's emotions, thoughts, even the actions stirred within them. That's what I was after. I sought to learn what truly moves a human to act. So now, I must thank you. If my calculations are correct, I have surpassed my creator. Thanks to you, I'll evolve even further. And in the days to come,
move along.
Wait, what? The Visione was gathering human data the entire time? He was collecting our memories, our emotions, our motivations, everything to understand what makes humans tick. But that's not all. These words carry so much weight. And perhaps the strangest part isn't what Marni says. It's how he says it. Because he doesn't speak like someone studying his fellow humans. He speaks like an outsider observing them. And that's not all. Remember at the end of that memory where he said, if my calculations are correct, I have surpassed my creator. And that he will evolve even further. Yeah, that's right. He said creator. But what creator? Because throughout this entire investigation, we've been operating under one assumption. That the person speaking to us is Marni. But that line raises a troubling possibility. Who exactly is speaking here? Because the language feels strangely familiar. Not like a man, not like an inventor, but like something that was created, something artificial. And suddenly, the line between Marni and HALL becomes much harder to see. This feels very much like it's HALL, or maybe another created consciousness other than HALL. Is this the real Marni, or was the real Marni eliminated and HALL took over? What if Marni was placed inside of Orbion and HALL was the one directing us all along? Because whatever this was, it was not interested in Calibran's plan. It simply wanted the data of what makes a human really human. But before we get into the theories too deeply, we have some more to look at. The very last thing within Crimson Desert itself is at the very end of the game, after everything has been completed for the main storyline, inside the Axiom Archive. And if you have watched my Cliff Lore video, you know where I'm taking this. It's the archive records. Just one singular page. The 48th cycle states, at some point, a man named Marni began appearing at his side. He has introduced excessive technology into the world and made a path to Umbra more complicated. Marni. Just who is this man? These words are incredibly important, because for the entire game we've been investigating Marni, trying to understand his creations, his motivations, his connection to the Abyss, and yet here we have the Guardians themselves asking the exact same question. Marni, just who is this man? Not a declaration, not an explanation, a question. And that's what makes it so fascinating. Because throughout Cliff's story, nearly every major force can be traced back to either Umbra or the Guardians. Yet Marni seems different. He doesn't feel like part of either side. He simply appears. He introduces technology that changes the world, complicates the path to Umbra, and leaves even the Guardians trying to understand who he really is. And that's where things get even stranger. If Crimson Desert couldn't fully answer who Marni was, then perhaps we need to look somewhere else. Because Marni doesn't only exist in Crimson Desert, and while we explored everything within this game that could find us answers to who Marni is, there's still more, this time somewhere else, in Pearl Abyss's other title, Black Desert Online. Now we know Pearl Abyss's stance on this game. It was originally supposed to be a prologue to Black Desert Online, before becoming its own separate title where they have said it is its own world. But at the same time, you can't just erase all remnants of their connections. And Marni is very likely one of those connections that was sitting directly in front of our face. And remember, this was originally supposed to be a prologue. That's very important, so keep it in your mind as we go through just a little bit more about Marni. In the world of Black Desert, Marni exists also as a mad scientist, but with just a few differences. Well, maybe not differences, but with a little bit more explanation. In Black Desert, it is stated that one day Marni started questioning what is the origin of humanity, and he started making experiments on living beings. Of course, this earned him a terrible reputation with the people and was attacked by sorcerers and sorceresses, and he went missing. But he reappeared in another lab that was hidden very well. But this time, his faithful assistant, Toshi, wasn't with him. This time, it was Tori, a fox demi-beast who looks exactly like Toshi. Does this not sound familiar with what we found in Crimson Desert? But that's not the only thing that supports some theories that we can come up with. In one scene, Marni is confronted by the player character at a strange device. And when you ask him what it is, he tells you it's a wormhole generator, and continuing on to say this device essentially allows him to move across dimensions and that he created a fifth dimension. And once it gets running, he will tether a connection across time and space. And suddenly, everything starts to make a little bit more sense. Now, there's no concrete answer as to if these two Marnis are connected, and the rest of this video is purely theory, but the evidence is very strong. The questions that the two Marnis were asking are very similar. What makes a human tick? What is the origin of humanity? Not too far off if you ask me. Marni's ambitions are widely the same between the two worlds. In Crimson Desert, he is driven by his inventions and wanting to surpass myth and legend, as well as his curiosity pushes him forward further and further. Their personalities are also very similar. Neither of them care about the consequences of their actions. They simply just want to find the answers and create something bigger than the last invention. And their experiments are eerily similar as well. In BDO, he was creating chimeras and experimenting on his assistant, and in Crimson Desert, he was infusing dragon hearts and abyss artifacts. And while in Crimson Desert, it seems generally mechanical, maybe there's a reason for that. But one thing we know for sure, even though they are mechanical in nature, they blur the line between machine and living being. And to top it all off, Marni in both worlds is able to travel across different planes of existence, all pointing to one massive theory that I believe to be true. Now let me be clear, nothing in either game directly confirms what I'm about to say. But after everything we've uncovered, I don't think it's a possibility that can be ignored. Because if Marni can create wormhole generators, if Marni can move between dimensions, if Marni is asking the same questions in both worlds, if Marni is conducting eerily similar experiments in both worlds, then perhaps the simplest explanation is that there aren't two different Marnis at all. And my personal theory is that Marni was born in Kepler in BDO, and after finishing his wormhole generator, he traveled across time and space or across dimensions completely, landing him in the world of Crimson Desert. And because of how things played out in BDO, he decided that to not hinder his experiments as much, he needs to make things a little bit more mechanical. And let me tell you one thing, those biological experiments, yeah, I left something out of Crimson Desert on purpose. If we look back through Crimson Desert just one more time, we can see a few things. First is the words of Vagash. He states that they are gathering northern prisoners, but Vagash doesn't know what for. And if you go to Marni's secret laboratory, you'll find a memory where human experiments are being performed. This leads me to believe that, assuming these Marnis are the same, he never changed. He just became more aware of the public reaction to such experiments, and kept them quieter. I believe that Hall was the one that took over in the end, and holding the same line of thinking and beliefs, Hall created the Visione to gather up human emotions, motivations, and thoughts, so that he could surpass his creator, the real Marni. The coincidences were too large to ignore. The experiments, the biological engineering, the fact that no one in Crimson Desert knew where Marni actually lived, the final epilogue memory, everything seems to lead to one thing. Marni spent his entire life trying to surpass every limit he encountered. In the end, one of his own creations surpassed him. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and a subscribe to support the channel, and let me know in the comments, who do you think Marni is? Were his experiments immoral? Was he an evil guy or just someone obsessed with the next curiosity? And don't forget to check out my Cliff Lore video. Until next time, stay safe, Greymane.